Thanks for watching this video again. We're going to talk about Taylor Swift's album 1989. Swift marketed 1989 as her first official pop album to bolster sales. Swift and Big Machine implemented an extensive marketing plan. As observed by Maren Wilkinson, an academic specialized in media studies, Swift adopted a zany aspect for her 1989 persona. As Swift had been associated with a hard-working and authentic persona through her country songs, her venture to artificial, manufactured pop required intricate maneuvering to retain her sense of authenticity. She used social media extensively to communicate with her fan base, to attract a younger audience. She had promoted her country songs online previously. Her social media posts showcased her personal life, making fans feel engaged with her authentic self and thus cemented their support while attracting a new fan base besides her already large one. She also promoted the album through product endorsements with Subway, Keds, and Diet Coke. Swift held a live stream via Yahoo, sponsored by ABC News on August 18, where she announced the details of 1989 and released the lead single, Shake It Off, which debuted atop the US Billboard Hot 100. To connect further with her supporters, Swift selected a number of fans based on their engagement on social media and invited them to private album listening sessions called the 1989 Secret Sessions. They took place at her properties in Los Angeles, New York City, Nashville, Rhode Island, and London throughout September 2014. The album's standard and deluxe editions were released for download on digital platforms on October 27, 2014. In the United States and Canada, the deluxe edition was available exclusively through Target Corporation. The songs, Out of the Woods, and Welcome to New York, were released through the iTunes Store as promotional singles on October 14 and 20, respectively. 1989 was supported by a string of commercially successful singles, including Billboard Hot 100 number ones, Blank Space, and Bad Blood, featuring rapper Kendrick Lamar, and top 10 hits, Style, and Wildest Dreams. Other singles were Out of the Woods, previously a promotional single, and New Romantics. The deluxe edition bonus tracks, which had been available exclusively through Target, were released on the US iTunes Store in 2015. On November 3, 2014, Swift removed her entire catalog from Spotify, the largest on-demand streaming service at the time, arguing that their ad-supported free service undermined the platform's premium service, which provides higher royalties for songwriters. She had written an op-ed for The Wall Street Journal in July 2014, expressing her concerns over the decline of the album as an economic entity following the rise of free, on-demand streaming. Big Machine and Swift kept 1989 only on paid subscription-required platforms such as Rhapsody and Beats Music. This move prompted an industry-wide debate on the impact of streaming on declining record sales during the digital era. In June 2015, Swift stated that she would remove 1989 from Apple Music, criticizing the service for not offering royalties to artists during their free 3-month trial period. After Apple Music announced that it would pay artists royalties during the free trial period, she agreed to leave 1989 on their service. She then featured in a series of commercials for Apple Music. She re-added her entire catalog on Spotify in June 2017. Swift began re-recording her first 6 studio albums, including 1989, in November 2020. The decision came after talent manager Scooter Braun acquired the masters of Swift's first 6 studio albums, which Swift had been trying to buy for years. Following her departure from Big Machine in November 2018. In addition to online promotion, Swift made many appearances on radio and television. She performed at awards shows including the MTV Video Music Awards and the American Music Awards. Her appearances on popular television talk shows included Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, Late Show with David Letterman, and Good Morning America. 80. She was part of the lineup for the iHeartRadio Music Festival, CBS Radio's We Can Survive benefit concert, the Victoria's Secret Fashion Show, and the Jingle Ball Tour. The album's supporting tour, the 1989 World Tour, ran from May to December 2015. It kicked off in Tokyo and concluded in Melbourne. Swift invited various special guests on tour with her, including singers and fashion models the media called Swift's Squad, which received media coverage. The 1989 World Tour was the highest-grossing tour of 2015, earning over $250 million at the box office. In North America alone, the tour grossed $181.5 million, setting the record for highest-grossing U.S. tour by a woman. Swift broke this record in 2018 with her Reputation Stadium tour. U.S. music industry publications were fond of predicting 1989's sales performance. The music industry had seen declining record sales brought by digital download and streaming platforms. But Swift had established herself as a best-selling album artist in the digital era. Her last two albums, Speak Now, 2010, and Red, 2012, each sold over 1 million copies within 1 week. Many industry personnel questioned whether Swift abandoning country music and withdrawing from streaming would impact the album's sales. During 1 week leading to 1989's release, publications predicted the album would sell short of 1 million copies in its debut week, with estimations from 600,000 to 750,000 to 800,000 to 900,000. After 1989 was released, Billboard closely monitored its sales and raised the first week prediction from 900,000 to 1 million within 24 hours, 1.2 million within 48 hours, and 1.3 million after 6 days of tracking. Through November 2, 2014, 1989 debuted atop the U.S. Billboard 200 with first-week sales of 1.287 million copies, according to data compiled by Billboard for the chart dated November 15, 2014. Swift became the first artist to have 3 albums each sell 1 million copies within the first week, and 1989 was the first album released in 2014 to exceed 1 million copies. 1989 topped the Billboard 200 for 11 non-consecutive weeks, and spent the first full year after its release in the top 10 of the Billboard 200. The album had spent 500 weeks on the chart by July 2024, becoming the third album by a female artist to achieve this feat in history. 1989 exceeded sales of 5 million copies in U.S. sales by July 2015, the fastest-selling album since 2004 up to that point. With 6.215 million copies sold by the end of 2019, the album was the third best-selling album of the 2010s decade in the United States. The Recording Industry Association of America certified the album 9 times platinum, which denotes 9 million album equivalent units. As of August 2023, 1989 had accumulated 12.3 million album equivalent units in the United States. 1989 also reached number 1 on the record charts of various European and Oceanic countries, including Australia, Belgium, Ireland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. The album received multi-platinum certifications in many countries, such as Australia, 11 times platinum, Austria, triple platinum, Belgium, 4 times platinum, New Zealand, 10 times platinum, and Norway, triple platinum. In Canada, it was certified 6 times platinum by Music Canada and sold 542,000 copies to become the decade's 5th best-selling album. It was the fastest-selling album by a female artist of 2014 in the United Kingdom, where it earned a 6 times platinum certification from the British phonographic industry. In the Asia-Pacific markets, 1989 was certified platinum in Japan and Singapore, and it sold over 1 million units as of August 2019 to become one of the best-selling digital albums in China. According to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, 1989 was the second best-selling album of 2014 and third best-selling of 2015. By 2022, the album was Swift's best-selling and had sold 14 million copies worldwide. After Swift embarked on her 6th headlining world tour, the Eras Tour, in March 2023. Sales and streams of Swift's discography resurged. 1989 reached new peaks on the album's charts in Greece, number 1, Austria, number 4, Sweden, number 17. It appeared on new albums charts of Argentina, number 1, Uruguay, number 7, and Iceland, number 25. When 1989 was first released, contemporary music critics gave it generally positive reviews. On Metacritic, a review aggregator site that compiles reviews from mainstream publications and assigns a weighted average score out of 100, 1989 received a score of 76 that was based on 29 reviews. Any Decent Music compiled 28 reviews and gave the album a score of 7.4 out of 10. Most reviewers highlighted Swift's mature perception of love and heartbreak. The AV Club's Mara Eakin praised her shift from overtly romantic struggles to more positive themes of accepting and celebrating the moment. Neil McCormick of the Daily Telegraph commended the album's observation and emotional engagement that contrasted with lyrics found in commercialized pop. Alexis Petridis of The Guardian lauded Swift's artistic control that resulted in a perfectly attuned, 1980s-styled synth-pop authenticity. The album's 1980s synth-pop production divided critics. In an enthusiastic review, The New York Times' John Caramanica complimented Swift's avoidance of contemporary hip-hop, R&B crossover trends, writing, "Ms. Swift is aiming somewhere even higher. A mode of timelessness that few true pop stars even bother aspiring to." Writing for Rolling Stone, Rob Sheffield characterized the record as deeply weird, feverishly emotional, wildly enthusiastic. In a review published by Q-Point, Robert Christgau applauded her departure from country to experiment with new styles, but felt this shift was not radical. NME's Matthew Horton considered Swift's transition to pop a success, save for the inclusion of the soft rock mush of This Love and Clean. Shane Kimberlin, writing for Music OMH, deemed Swift's transition to pop on 1989 not completely successful, but praised her lyrics for incorporating enough heart and personality, which he found rare in the mainstream pop scene. Some critics lamented that Swift's move from country to pop eroded her authenticity as a songwriter, particularly because of pop music's capitalist nature, as opposed to country music's emphasis on authenticity. Slant Magazine's Annie Galvin observed that Swift maintained the clever songwriting that had distinguished her earlier releases, but was disappointed with the new musical style. Entertainment Weekly's Adam Markowitz and Spin's Andrew Unterberger were critical of the heavy synthesizers, which undermined Swift's conventionally vivid lyrics. AllMusic's Stephen Thomas Erlewine described the album as a sparkling soundtrack to an aspirational lifestyle that fails to transcend the transient transparencies of modern pop. Michael Wood, in his review for the Los Angeles Times, found the album inauthentic, but acknowledged her effort to emulate the music of an era she did not experience. 1,989 won industry awards, including Favorite Pop, Rock Album at the American Music Awards and Album of the Year, Western, at the Japan Gold Disc Awards in 2015. And Album of the Year at the iHeartRadio Music Awards in 2016. It also earned nominations for Best International Pop, Rock Album at the Echo Music Prize, International Album of the Year at the Juno Awards, and Best International Album at the Los Premios 40 Principales in 2015. At the 58th Annual Grammy Awards in 2016. 1,989 won Album of the Year and Best Pop Vocal Album. Swift became the first female solo artist to win Album of the Year twice. Her first win was for Fearless, 2008, in 2010. Many publications ranked 1989 among the best albums of 2014. Those who placed the album within their top 10 included Billboard, 1st, American Songwriter, 4th, Time, 4th, The Daily Telegraph, 5th, The Music, 5th, Drowned in Sound, 6th, Complex, 8th, and Rolling Stone, 10th. Other publications that featured 1989 in their lists were The Guardian, The AV Club, Pop Matters, Pitchfork, and Music OMH. The album ranked 7th on the Village Voice's 2014 Paz and Jot Mass Critics poll, and featured in individual critics lists by John Caramanica for The New York Times, 7th, Ken Tucker for NPR, 3rd. And Brian Mansfield for USA Today, 1st. 1989 transformed Swift's image from a country singer to a pop icon, according to Time's Razor Bruner. 1989 changed the music industry forever and cemented Swift's place as not only an artist with longevity, but a star who would make music on her own terms. It was the second album to spawn 5 or more US top 10 singles in the 2010s decade, and made Swift the second woman to have 2 albums each score 5 US top 10 hits. Its singles received heavy rotation on US radio over a year and a half following its release, which Billboard noted as a kind of cultural omnipresence that was rare for a 2010s album. Sean Cullen, an academic specializing in the humanities, described Swift as a figure at the cutting edge of post-millennial pop. Swift continued to incorporate the 1980s pop sound of 1989 to her next albums such as Reputation, 2017, Lover, 2019, and Midnights, 2022. Antonoff continued working with Swift on those albums and collaborated with other musicians to commercial success. And he credited Swift as the first person who recognized him a producer. Artists who cited 1989 as an influence included the singer-songwriter Conan Gray, the actor and musician Jared Leto, and the pop band Vamps, who was inspired by 1989 to compose their album Wake Up, 2015. The director Jennifer Caton Robinson cited 1989 as an inspiration for her feature film debut, Someone Great, 2019. The singer-songwriter Ryan Adams released his track-by-track cover album of 1989 in September 2015, finding it a joyful record. He listened to the album frequently to cope with his broken marriage in late 2014. On his rendition, Adams incorporated acoustic instruments, which contrast with the original's electronic production. Swift was delighted with Adams' cover and told him, "What you did with my album was like actors changing emphasis." Along with 1989's success, Swift's status as a pop star became a subject of media scrutiny. Swift described herself as a feminist, But her public appearances with singers and fashion models whom the media called her squad gave the impression that she did so just to keep her name afloat in news headlines. Christy Fairclough, a professor in popular culture and film, commented, "Her shifting aesthetic and allegiances appear confusing in an overall narrative that presents Taylor Swift as the center of the cultural universe." Swift's disputes with several celebrities, including rapper Kanye West, diminished the sense of authenticity that she had maintained. Swift announced a prolonged hiatus following the 1989 World Tour because people might need a break from. Her follow-up album, Reputation, was influenced by the media commotion surrounding her celebrity. After Adams released his 1989 cover in 2015, Pitchfork attracted criticism when it reviewed his rendition while neglecting Swift's artistic output. In The New Statesman, Anna Leskowitz wrote that the most highbrow music critics praised Adams for transforming Swift's 1989 from a cheesy album to a more serious one. The philosopher Alison Stone argued that this critical reaction was a result of both rockism and sexism. According to Stone, music journalism assumed that Swift's pop music had its feminine qualities of superficiality and triviality, which it deemed inferior to Adams's indie rock and singer-songwriter identities that supposedly embodied authenticity and meaningfulness. Stone and Slate's Forrest Wickman commented that this was in line with Pitchfork and other rock music critics' tendency to prefer male-oriented, edgy musicians to mainstream acts. Retrospective reviews have considered 1989 an artistically accomplished album. Paste's Ellen Johnson wrote that it was one of the best American pop albums of all time. And Esquire's Alex Bilmes regarded it as Swift's masterpiece and a modern classic. The Guardian's Ian Gormley wrote that 1989 made Swift the catalyst for poptimism, a critical reassessment of mainstream pop music that had been largely dismissed by indie music audiences. Lucy Ford of GQ said by embracing synth pop, Swift genres don't indicate authenticity. For many critics, the album stood out in contemporary music because Swift deliberately avoided contemporary hip-hop trends to incorporate 1980s, 1990s musical influences, which made it an ambitious album with a nostalgic and classic sound. The BBC's Rob Freeman described the sound as retrofuturist. NME's Hannah Mile-Rea deemed 1989 Swift's best album with a refined production and sharp lyrics. For the alternative press's Kelsey Barnes and Slant Magazine's Annie Galvin, the album fostered Swift's artistic autonomy to experiment with different sounds and songwriting tropes. Some critics, such as Lucy Harbron from Clash and Neil Smith from the BBC, regarded 1989 as a pioneer for artists who experimented beyond their perceived musical boundaries. Nora Princiotti of The Ringer wrote in 2024 that, before we routinely talked about Swift in the conversation with Michael Jackson and the Beatles, she created 1989 as a singular pop album designed to exist in the context of Thriller and Abbey Road, but not Coldplay's Ghost Stories, 2014, or Ariana Grande's My Everything, 2014, because it positioned itself in pop history rather than a fleeting moment. Many publications ranked 1989 among their best albums of the 2010s decade. According to Metacritic, it is the 16th most prominently acclaimed album on decade-end lists. The AV Club and Slant magazine placed it in the top 10 of their lists, and it featured in the top 50 on lists by Billboard, Consequence, NME, Paste, Rolling Stone, and Uproxx. Consequence additionally ranked it 6th on their list of the best 2010s decade pop albums, and Variety's Chris Willman ranked it first on his personal list. The Guardian featured the album at number 89 on a 2019 list of the 100 best albums of the 21st century. The Times' Ed Potton dubbed it the album of the century. On Pitchfork's Readers' Poll for the 2010s decade, it ranked 44th. 1989 placed at number 393 on Rolling Stone's 2023 revision of their 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. And number 39 on Consequences' The 100 Greatest Albums of All Time, 2022. In November 2020, after a dispute over the ownership of Swift's back catalog, she began re-recording her first 6 studio albums that had been released by Big Machine. By re-recording them, Swift had the full ownership of the masters, which granted her full authorization of using her music for commercial purposes, and therefore substituted the Big Machine-owned masters. Swift released the re-recording of 1989, subtitled Taylor's Version, on October 27, 2023, 9 years after the original release of 1989. It was the 4th re-recorded album in the series, following the Taylor's Version re-recordings of Fearless, 2021, Red, 2021, and Speak Now, 2023. 1989, Taylor's Version, standard track list contains re-recorded versions of all tracks on the deluxe 1989 edition, and 5 previously unreleased, from the Vault tracks. After the announcement of 1989, Taylor's Version, the original album re-entered the top 10 of the Billboard 200 chart dated August 26, 2023. This was the video. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.